Beamy, 28 years old, working as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company. It's a decent gig. The pay is good, the work is challenging enough to not be boring, and my coworkers are mostly cool. Our team is a pretty tight-knit group. We've been working together for a few years and we have a good rhythm. There are about 12 of us on the main development team, 8 males, 4 females. Everything is professional, we all get along, no drama, until about 6 months ago. That's when the company hired a new head of human resources. Her name was Kendra. Kendra was in her late 30s, and she made it very clear from day one that she was here to implement a new, progressive vision for the company culture. On her first day, she sent out a company-wide email with the subject line, "A new era of inclusive excellence." The email was full of buzzwords like synergy, paradigm shift, and empowerment. It also mentioned her background in intersectional feminist studies and how she planned to apply those principles to our workplace. A few of us exchanged looks over our monitors. It felt a bit corporate preachy, but whatever. As long as she did her job and let us do ours, it didn't matter. One of the guys on our team is named Leo. Leo is probably the quietest person I've ever met. He's an absolute genius when it comes to coding. The guy is a machine. He writes clean, efficient code faster than anyone else. He's socially awkward though, like painfully so. He rarely speaks unless spoken to, and even then, he keeps his answers short and to the point. He never joins in on the office banter, doesn't come to after-work drinks, and eats lunch at his desk every single day. He's not rude or unfriendly, he's just silent. He communicates through his work, and his work is impeccable. He's always polite, holds the door for people, and will help you if you're stuck on a problem, but he does it with minimal words. He just puts on his noise-canceling headphones and gets into a flow state for 8 hours straight. Nobody has a problem with Leo. We all respect his work ethic and his skills. We've all learned that's just how he is. He's a nice guy, just very, very introverted. Kendra, the new HR lady, did not see it that way. Her first major initiative was to conduct one-on-one cultural fit interviews with every employee. My interview was weird. She asked me questions like, "How do you feel your masculine energy impacts the team dynamic? And can you describe a time you deconstructed a patriarchal assumption in a project meeting?" I mostly just gave vague, corporate-sounding answers to get through it. I talked to my other coworkers afterward. The male employees all had similar, bizarre interviews. The female employees, however, said their interviews were completely different. They said Kendra was super friendly, asked them about their career goals, and talked about creating safe spaces for women in tech. This was the first red flag. A week later, Kendra starts making her presence known on our floor. She would just walk around observing people, not talking to anyone, just watching. And she seemed to focus a lot on Leo. She would stand near his desk, just out of his direct line of sight, and just stare at him while he worked. It was creepy. Leo, being Leo, seemed completely oblivious. He had his headphones on, locked in on his code. He probably didn't even know she was there. After a few days of this, she calls our manager, David, into her office. David is a good boss. He's been a developer for 20 years, so he understands the work and he trusts his team. He's no nonsense but fair. David comes back from the meeting looking annoyed. He pulls me and another senior developer, Mark, into a small meeting room. David tells us that Kendra has expressed concerns about Leo. Mark asks, "Concerns about what? His work is flawless," David sighs. "It's not about his work. She said he has a hostile and intimidating presence." I literally laughed out loud. "Leo, hostile? The guy is a teddy bear who's afraid of his own shadow," David nods. "I know, I told her that. I said Leo is just quiet and keeps to himself, that he's one of our best developers." "What did she say?" Mark asks. "She said that his silence is a form of passive aggression. She said, and I quote, his refusal to engage socially creates a non-inclusive environment, especially for the female members of the team. She called it silent misogyny. We were both speechless. Silent misogyny. For a guy who barely speaks a word to anyone, David told us he defended Leo, but Kendra was adamant. She wanted him to coach Leo on his interpersonal soft skills. So David has this incredibly awkward meeting with Leo. Leo comes out looking more confused than ever. He comes over to my desk, which is rare for him. David said I need to be more sociable, he says, looking at the floor. He said HR is concerned about my vibe. I felt so bad for the guy. He's just trying to do his job. I told him, don't worry about it, Leo. Just keep doing what you're doing. David is on your side. We all are. He just gave a small nod and went back to his desk. The whole thing was absurd, but we figured it would blow over. Kendra was new, trying to make her mark. She'd eventually move on to some other corporate nonsense. We were wrong. Kendra started escalating things. She organized a mandatory team-building workshop for our department. The workshop was led by a consultant friend of hers. It was 4 hours of pure cringe. We had to do exercises like privilege walks and go around the room sharing our emotional truths. The facilitator kept trying to get Leo to participate. Leo, we haven't heard from you. What's your emotional truth in this moment? Leo looked like a deer in the headlights. He just mumbled, I'm okay, I'm just listening. The facilitator pushed him. But we need you to engage, Leo. Your silence can be interpreted as dismissive by your colleagues. One of our female coworkers, Sarah, actually spoke up for him. He's just shy, she said. We're all used to it. It's really not a big deal. Kendra, who was sitting in the corner, shot Sarah a look that could curdle milk. The whole workshop was a disaster. It created more tension than it resolved. After that, Kendra started documenting everything Leo did. If he didn't say good morning to someone, she'd write it down. If he sat alone at lunch, she'd make a note of it. She started pulling the female employees on our team into her office for one-on-one chats. Later, a couple of them told us what was happening. Kendra was trying to get them to say they felt unsafe or uncomfortable around Leo. She'd ask leading questions like, doesn't Leo's intense, quiet focus make you feel on edge? Or have you ever felt that his refusal to make eye contact is a power play? To their credit, none of them took the bait. They all told her the same thing, Leo is harmless, he's just quiet. His work is great, we have no issues with him. This seemed to frustrate Kendra even more. If she couldn't find a victim, she would just have to create the narrative herself. She started sending emails to our manager, David, with official complaints about Leo. The complaints were always vague and subjective. Leo's negative body language is disruptive to the team's synergy. Leo failed to contribute vocally during the brainstorming session, which is a sign of non-compliance with our collaborative culture. Multiple employees have reported feeling an unwelcoming aura from Leo's workspace. David would forward these to his own boss, the director of engineering, and argue against them. He defended Leo at every turn. He showed his performance reviews, which were always stellar. He highlighted his contributions to our biggest projects, but Kendra had the ear of the C-suite. She was selling them this vision of a modern, progressive workplace, and they were buying it. The pressure on David was mounting. The atmosphere on the team started to get really toxic. Everyone was walking on eggshells. The natural, easygoing banter we used to have disappeared. Everyone was afraid that anything they said or did could be twisted and used by Kendra. We all tried to support Leo. We'd make an extra effort to include him, to ask for his opinion on things, to draw him out of his shell. But the pressure was clearly getting to him. He started looking stressed all the time. He was making small mistakes in his code, which was unheard of for him. He was a guy who just wanted to be left alone to do his work, and he was being relentlessly targeted for his personality. The other male employees started to realize that this wasn't just about Leo. If they could do this to him for being quiet, what could they do to us? Mark, the other senior dev, is a pretty assertive guy. He's very direct and doesn't beat around the bush. Kendra started targeting him next. She told David that Mark's aggressive communication style was an example of toxic masculinity. Another guy, a junior developer named Sam, is very friendly and jokes around a lot. Kendra had a meeting with him about how his incessant humor could be a defense mechanism that masks a deep-seated insecurity and might make others uncomfortable. It became clear that she had a problem with every type of male personality. If you were quiet, you were hostile. If you were direct, you were aggressive. If you were funny, you were insecure. There was no way to win. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. It was about a month after the horrible team-building workshop. Kendra called Leo and David into a meeting with her and the director of engineering. I saw them walk into the glass-walled conference room. Leo looked pale. The meeting lasted about 15 minutes. David came out looking furious. He walked straight to his office and slammed the door. Leo came out right after him. He walked slowly back to his desk, his face completely blank. He just stood there for a moment, looking at his monitors. Then he started quietly packing his things into his backpack. His keyboard, his mouse, a couple of books. He wasn't crying or angry, he just looked defeated. I got up and walked over to him. "Leo, what's going on?" He looked up at me and his eyes were hollow. "They fired me," he said, his voice barely a whisper. The whole area went silent. Everyone had heard him. "They what?" Mark said, standing up from his desk. "On what grounds?" Leo just shook his head. "She said I wasn't a cultural fit," said my presence was having a detrimental impact on team morale and psychological safety. He zipped up his backpack and put it on. "They said my bad vibes were a liability to the company's new inclusive direction." Bad vibes. They fired the best developer we had. A guy who had never had a single complaint about his actual work. A guy who had never been rude or unprofessional to anyone. They fired him for having bad vibes. Something inside me just snapped. I had been bottling up my anger and frustration over this whole situation for months. Watching this quiet, brilliant guy get systematically bullied and then fired by this corporate ideologue for no reason, it was the last straw. I looked at Leo, standing there with his whole professional life in a backpack, looking completely broken. Then I looked at Mark. He was staring at Leo and his face was unreadable. It was a cold, hard anger. I looked around at the other guys on the team. Sam, Ben, Alex, Kevin, Eric, Mike, every single one of them was standing up. Every single one of them had the same look on their face. It was a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. No one said a word. Mark was the first to move. He slowly and deliberately started unplugging his monitors. He coiled up his cables and placed them on his desk. He took his framed photo of his wife and kids and put it in his bag. Then he took his company laptop, walked over to Leo and put a hand on his shoulder. "Let's go get a beer, Leo," he said. Then one by one the rest of us started doing the same thing. Sam unplugged his mechanical keyboard. Ben packed up his collection of rubber ducks he used for debugging. Mike took down his whiteboard filled with complex diagrams. No one was rushing, no one was yelling. It was a silent, methodical, and unified protest. The female employees were just staring, their jaws on the floor. They looked shocked but also not surprised. They had seen the injustice firsthand. Sarah, the one who had spoken up for Leo in the workshop, had tears in her eyes. David came out of his office. He had obviously been arguing with his boss on the phone. He saw what was happening and he just stopped. He looked at all of us packing our things. He looked at Leo. He just nodded slowly, a look of grim understanding on his face. By this point, Kendra had come out of the conference room. She must have heard the commotion stop. She walked out onto the floor with a smug, triumphant look on her face. That look vanished instantly when she saw what was happening. She saw 8 male developers, the entire male contingent of her company's core development team, packing their desks. Her face went from smug to confused and then to sheer panic. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her voice a little too high-pitched. "What are you all doing?" Mark zipped up his bag and slung it over his shoulder. He looked her dead in the eye. "We're fixing the bad vibes," he said, his voice cold as ice. Turns out they weren't coming from Leo. And with that, he walked towards the exit. Leo, looking a bit stunned, but also with a flicker of something else in his eyes, maybe relief, maybe gratitude, walked with him. I was the next one. I grabbed my bag and walked past her. I didn't even look at her. One by one, all 8 of us walked out. We didn't say goodbye to our female coworkers. We didn't need to, they knew. They gave us small, supportive nods as we left. We walked past the director's office. He was standing in his doorway looking absolutely horrified. He looked like he was about to be sick. We didn't stop. We walked to the elevators, all 8 of us. The elevator ride down was silent. When the doors opened in the lobby, we all just walked out of the building and into the sunlight. We were unemployed, all of us. But for the first time in months, it felt like we could breathe again. We stood on the sidewalk outside the office building. Leo finally looked up at us. His eyes were watery. "Guys, you didn't have to do that," he said quietly. "You all have jobs, families," Mark clapped him on the back. "There are other jobs, Leo. There's only one of you," Sam added. "We're a team. You don't mess with one of us without messing with all of us." I felt a surge of pride. We had done the right thing. It was a huge risk, but it was the right thing. We all went to a nearby bar. We spent the afternoon talking, decompressing, and for the first time, actually getting to know Leo a little better. He was still quiet, but he opened up. He talked about his passion for coding, his hobbies. He was actually a really interesting guy. He was just terrible at small talk in an office setting. Meanwhile, my phone started blowing up. So did everyone else's. It was David, our manager, and his boss, the director, and his boss's boss, the chief technology officer. Voicemails, texts, emails, all of them in a complete and utter panic. "Call me immediately. This is a huge misunderstanding. We can work this out." We ignored all of them. Turns out, the 8 of us walking out at the same time had effectively crippled the entire development department. We were in the middle of a major product launch scheduled for the following month. The 8 of us were the senior and mid-level developers who had built the entire back-end architecture. Without us, the whole project was dead in the water. The 4 remaining female developers were talented, but they were all more on the front-end side of things. They couldn't handle the complex server-side code and database management that we were responsible for. The company was screwed. Absolutely royally screwed. By late afternoon, the offers started coming in. First, from David. He said Kendra was on administrative leave and that the company wanted to offer Leo his job back with a formal apology. We all talked about it. Leo was hesitant. He didn't want to go back to that environment. We told him we had his back no matter what he decided. Then Mark got a call. It was from a recruiter at a rival company. Apparently, word gets around fast in the tech community. A team of 8 experienced developers suddenly on the market at the same time. That's like a golden ticket for a recruiter. The recruiter said he had heard a rumor about why we left. He asked if it was true. Mark told him the whole story. The recruiter was silent for a moment, and then he said, "I want to hire your entire team, all 8 of you. Plus your manager if he's interested." Mark put him on speakerphone. The recruiter laid it out for us. His company was looking to build a new team for a major project. They had the budget, but they were struggling to find the talent. Finding one good developer is hard. Finding 8 who already know how to work together, that's a unicorn. He offered us a package deal. A 15% salary increase for everyone, a signing bonus, and he would match our seniority and vacation days. And he said, "Our HR department is run by sane people who care about your code, not your vibes." We were all stunned. We spent the next hour discussing it. It was a no-brainer. Mark called the recruiter back and told him we were interested. He also told him about David, our manager. The next day, we all met with the new company. David had resigned that morning. He told us the CTO had ordered him to fire Kendra, but the damage was done. The trust was broken. He didn't want to work there anymore. The new company interviewed all of us, mostly as a formality. They were more interested in our team dynamic and how we worked together. They also interviewed David. By the end of the week, we all had official offers. All 8 developers plus David as our manager. An entire team lifted and shifted from one company to another. We all accepted. The aftermath for our old company was brutal. Their big product launch was a catastrophic failure. They had to delay it by 6 months and hire a team of expensive contractors to try and salvage the codebase we had left behind. Their stock price took a hit. The story of why we left leaked on Glassdoor and social media. It was a public relations nightmare for them. They became a laughingstock in the local tech scene, a cautionary tale about what happens when you let ideology trump competence. Kendra was fired, obviously. I heard she struggled to find another job in HR for a long time. Her reputation was shot. The director of engineering who stood by and let her fire Leo was also let go a few months later during a restructuring. We've been at the new company for over a year now. It's the best job I've ever had. The work is interesting, the management is supportive, and the culture is based on mutual respect and the quality of your work. Our team is stronger than ever. The whole experience bonded us in a way that no corporate team-building exercise ever could. And Leo, he's a different person. He's still quiet. He still keeps to himself mostly, but he's not stressed anymore. He's not walking on eggshells. He's in an environment where he's judged by his skills, not his social awkwardness. He's relaxed. He actually smiles now. He even cracks a joke every once in a while. He comes out for team lunches sometimes. He still sits at the end of the table and doesn't say much, but he's there. He's part of the group. He told me a few months ago that day, the day he was fired and we all walked out, was the worst day of his life, but also the best. He said he had spent his whole life feeling like there was something wrong with him because he wasn't outgoing and sociable. But seeing all of us stand up for him, seeing us risk our own livelihoods to protest the injustice done to him, it made him realize that he was okay just the way he was. It showed him that true teamwork isn't about forced fun and mandatory socializing. It's about having each other's backs. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. We didn't just walk out of a job that day. We walked away from a toxic culture of judgment and into a future where we were valued for who we were and what we could do. And we did it together. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to just walk away. And in our case, it changed all of our lives for the better. The vibes have been great ever since.